On a cold December night, a family sat around the fireplace in their cozy home. The warm firelight filled the room. The mother and father laughed at something their oldest daughter had said. The daughter was 17, much older than her little brother and sister, who were 5 and 6 years old. Their grandmother, an old woman, sat in the warmest corner of the room, knitting. The baby, the youngest child, smiled at the fire from its small bed. This family had found happiness in a very difficult place, high in the White Mountains. The wind blew strong and cold all year long. The family lived in a dangerous spot. Stones from the mountain above their house would often fall down and wake them in the middle of the night. No other families lived near them, but they were never lonely. They enjoyed being together and often had visitors. Their house was near a road that connected the White Mountains to the St. Lawrence River. People traveling through the mountains often stopped at the family's house for a drink and a friendly word. Travelers walking through the mountains would stop to share a warm meal, and sometimes the stormy weather would keep them there for the night. The family always treated travelers with kindness. That December evening, the wind was especially strong, howling as it rushed down the mountain. It knocked on the door before rushing down into the valley. For a moment, the family fell silent. Then they realized someone was actually knocking. The oldest daughter opened the door to find a young man standing outside. The grandmother put a chair near the fire for him. The daughter smiled warmly. The baby stretched out its little arms toward him. "This fire feels so good," the young man said. "The wind has been in my face for hours." The father took the man's bag. "Are you traveling to Vermont?" he asked. "Yes, to Burlington," the man replied. "I wanted to reach the valley tonight, but when I saw the light in your window, I decided to stop. I'd like to stay for a while and enjoy your fire and company." As the man sat by the fire, they heard strange, heavy footsteps outside. It sounded like someone was running down the side of the mountain. The father looked out the window. "That old mountain has sent down another stone. It sometimes shakes and makes us think it will fall on us," he said. "But we're used to it. I've made a safe place outside just in case." While the father spoke, the mother prepared a meal for their guest. As he ate, the young man spoke openly to the family, feeling comfortable with them. He had not trusted many people, but on this night, he shared something deep about himself. He said he was ambitious. Though he didn't know exactly what he wanted to do in life, he was sure he didn't want to be forgotten after he died. He believed he would become famous one day. "So far," he said, "I have done nothing. If I disappeared tomorrow, no one would remember me. But I can't die until I've achieved something important. Then I'll be ready for death." The family listened thoughtfully, and they smiled at him. "You laugh at me," he said, taking the daughter's hand. "You think my dream is silly." She blushed, looking down. "It's better to be here by the fire and be happy, even if no one remembers us," she whispered. The father stared into the fire. "What the young man says is true. Sometimes I wish we had a farm down in the valley, a place where the mountains don't scare us. I would be respected by my neighbors. And when I die, I'd like a stone over my grave to show I lived a good life." The young man smiled. "We all want to be remembered. Some want only a stone on their grave, while others want to be famous and admired. He threw more wood on the fire to keep the warmth in. The firelight danced on the faces of the family, the strong father, the proud young man, and the shy daughter. The grandmother, still knitting, looked up and said, "Old people have secrets too, just like young people." She told the family she had made her own funeral clothes many years ago. They were the nicest clothes she had ever made, even better than her wedding dress. Her secret was that she was afraid she wouldn't be buried in her best clothes. The young man looked into the fire. Old or young, we all think about death and how we will be remembered. I wonder how sailors feel when their ship sinks, and they know they will be buried in the sea. Suddenly, the ground shook. It sounded like a huge wave of earth was rushing toward the house. Everyone shouted, "The slide! The slide!" They quickly ran to the hiding place the father had built to protect them from the mountain slide. The side of the mountain came rushing toward them, but just before it reached the house, the earth split and went around the house. The family was safe. The next morning, people saw smoke coming from the chimney. It looked like the family had just gone for a walk. The chairs were still by the fire, as if they had just been sitting there. Some people thought the family had a visitor that night, but no one ever found out who the stranger was. His name and his life were a mystery. His body was never found.